Chaos at Joy's business place. Her late husband's relative had come as usual to collect everything she had sold for the day. This is a usual occurrence. They come with doubts, beat her up, beat her little boy, collect everything she has sold for the day. But this time around, something unusual happens. Now this takes us to the story of Obinna. Obinna Okafor's story was one many people spoke about in admiration all over the village and even the city where he now resides. Obinna was born into a family so poor that meals were never guaranteed. Obinna had experienced hunger, rejection and humiliation from a very young age. His father, who was a humble carpenter, had only one child, Obinna, and poured everything he had into that boy. Though poor in material things, Obinna's father was rich in discipline, wisdom, knowledge, and sacrifice. He raised his son properly and believed fiercely that his son would rise above his circumstances. Obinna did succeed through relentless hard work, intelligence, and an almost stubborn refusal to fail. Obinna built an empire from nothing. By the time he was 50, his name commanded respect in business circles. He owned companies, estates, and investments spread across cities. Wealth followed him like a shadow. He married the love of his life, a gentle woman who stood by him before the riches came. Their joy was complete when they welcomed a son. His name, Ikenna. Ikenna grew up knowing comfort, privilege, and abundance. Unlike his father, he never tasted poverty. The best schools, the best clothes, the best tutors, nothing was withheld from him. But fate was cruel in one way. Ikenna lost his mother at a young age. Her death changed everything. Obinna became both father and mother, but grief built a quiet wall between him and his son. Ikenna grew reserved, distant, uninterested in the empire his father had built with blood and sweat. Business meetings bored him, legacy discussions irritated him. Obinna became worried. As age crept upon him and his health weakened, fear set in. Not fear of death, but fear of leaving his life's work in unprepared hands. Knowing how uninterested Ikenna is, Obinna had a long and hard thought about the whole situation and came up with this idea. He gave Ikenna a condition he must meet that would determine everything. I shall host my friends, business partners, colleagues, and associates in the forthcoming 30 years anniversary of my company. You must come with your wife and your son. Obinna told Ikenna firmly, if you fail, you forfeit your inheritance. Ikenna was stunned, more like confused. He thought quickly to himself, I am not married. Worse, I'm not even in any serious relationship. What do I do? How can this man come up with such a ridiculous condition? While he was still processing his father's words in his thoughts, his father interrupted his thought. Have I made myself clear? Ikenna nodded in agreement. Time moved fast. The company's anniversary celebration was fast approaching and pressure closed in on Ikenna from all sides. Worse still, enemies within the family and even the company waited eagerly for him to fail. On this fateful day, Ikenna, on a lonely drive to a neighboring town, frustration heavy in his chest, he thought long and hard about what to do and how to solve the problem confronting him at the moment. While on that drive by the roadside, Ikenna took a closer look and noticed a young woman. Selling food from a small wooden stand, a street tout stood over her, shouting, threatening, demanding money. Beside her was a little boy clutching her skirts, eyes sharp but frightened. All she could do was try to protect the little boy. Without hesitation, Ikenna pulled over. His presence alone intimidated the tout, who quickly retreated. The young woman thanked him repeatedly, her voice shaking. As Ikenna was about to drive off, a thought struck him like lightning. What if? He looked again. The woman was strikingly beautiful in a quite unpolished way. The boy, bright-eyed, confident, curious, stood tall for his age. She could pass as my wife. And the boy? Ikenna stepped out of the car again and beckoned to the child. Would you like to work for me? He asked gently. I'll pay you and your mother. You're not working for free. All you have to do is what I ask you to do. The little boy turned to get his mother's approval. The woman had walked closer, listening carefully. She hesitated only briefly when the boy turned to get her approval before nodding. Her name is Joy. Her son's name is Paul. As Joy studied Ikenna's face, her heart skipped. Something about him felt familiar. Too familiar. I've seen this man before, she thought. She shook the thought away. Life had taught her not to dwell on mysteries. The deal was made. Joy and her son were to pose as Ikenna's wife and son on the day of the company 30th anniversary celebration. On the day of the party, Ikenna transformed them. New clothes, gentle coaching, rehearsed answers. True is the word that you can take someone away from the trenches, but you can't take trenches out of someone. Ikenna, who from onset was kind, humble, and gentle, he never allowed his father's wealth get into his head. He spoke kindly to them, so it was easy for him to blend with Joy and Paul, her son. He spoke kindly to them, adjusting his behavior to make them comfortable. Luxury was foreign to Joy and Paul, and Ikenna noticed every nervous glance, every stiff movement. He told Joy and Paul to relax, assured them he would protect them and always defend them no matter what happens. Together they arrived at Obinna's grand mansion in a convoy of luxury cars. The party was already live. Music, laughter, expensive wine, powerful guests. Obinna had proudly announced that his son was coming home with his wife and child. This announcement came because Ikenna had already called his father, told him he is coming with his wife and child. That announcement made by Obinna unsettled many. His colleagues, business partners, wicked aunties and uncles, who had always wished he died and left all his fortune to no one. Especially Uncle Martins, as they fondly call him, Obinna's closest business associate, and Auntie Juliet, Ikenna's mom's eldest sister. Both had plans that required Ikenna to fail. How convenient, Uncle Martins whispered to Obinna earlier, a wife and child nobody has ever heard of. Auntie Juliet smiled thinly. They are imposters, she thought, and I will prove it. When Ikenna arrived, Obinna's joy was genuine. He embraced his son, welcomed Joy warmly, and lifted up Paul with pride. But suspicion lingered. Joy and Paul struggled to blend into the opulence. Their manners, their speech, their wonder at everything. People noticed. Whispers followed them. Auntie Juliet pretended to be so kind to them. She helped Joy settle in. While at it, she searched through Paul's luggage under the guise of care and quietly slipped his comb into her bag. That night, Uncle Martins sent that comb to a lab for a DNA test. Apparently, Uncle Martins and Auntie Juliet were in partnership in this evil plot. During the party, With guests watching, Uncle Martins made his move. Since there are doubts, Uncle Martins was so sure that Paul and Joy were imposters. He proudly and loudly announced, "A DNA test is on the way. Today, the truth will be known. I am so sure this woman and her son are imposters. And it's a shame to you, Ikenna, for lying to all of us. You would lose your inheritance. That I am so sure of." Joy froze at the hearing of that news. Paul clutched her hand. Joy and Paul turned to Ikenna, staring at him in fear of having been caught. Ikenna remained calm, too calm. "I have everything under control," he whispered to them. Minutes later, a delivery man arrived with an envelope. Uncle Martin snatched the envelope eagerly and rushed to Obinna, who sat quietly, his heart pounding. Silence fell, stillness in the room, everybody watching in silence to see what unfolds. Obinna opened the envelope. His eyes widened. The room held its breath. Slowly, Obinna stood. Tears filled his eyes as he looked at Joy, then Paul, then Ikenna. The atmosphere was so tensed. "This DNA test," Obinna said, his voice trembling, "confirms that Paul is my grandson." The room erupted. Joy, Paul's mother, collapsed into a chair. Auntie Juliet staggered backward. Uncle Martins stammered, confused, defeated. Joy was resuscitated from her state of unconsciousness. And at that moment, something flashed back. She finally remembered. Years ago, before hardship swallowed her, she had known Obinna, Obinna's wife, Ikenna's mom. Faith had done what deception never could. The child hired to lie was blood by destiny, and Obinna's legacy was never in danger after all. The truth is yet to be revealed. Like, share, and subscribe as we await the next episode of this very interesting story. Thank you for watching.